How to teach a child to read from scratch, a step by step. In this presentation, I'm going to share with you a very powerful formula to teach any child to read. This is in fact the method that I've used to teach my own children to read, and this is also the blueprint that is revealed on the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch, Step by Step. For more info, go to our website learningreadinghub.com or look for it on Amazon. If you're watching this video soon enough, you might even be able to get it for free. You'll find links and details on the video description. This method is actually a bit different from others that are commonplace because it does not rely on the use of sight words, or its misuse, I should say instead. It does not rely on guessing, so no asking children what do you think this word could be. It does not rely on word shapes memorization techniques. I don't know if you're familiar with the word shapes strategy. It basically consists of asking children to memorize words based on their shape. So this is how you learn to read hat by memorizing this shape, and this is how you learn to read tree by memorizing this shape. The problem here is that there are many other words with the same shape, for instance, bat or free. Not using these techniques means as well that we are not going to be using these extremely common word solving strategies. So what are we going to use then? Instead, we're going to use sound modern principles that are in line with what happens in the brain when we learn to read. Also, throughout the entire presentation, I will break down the process into simple steps. You'll also discover the 5 ingredients that, in my opinion, are key for a successful learn to read strategy. In fact, I have based my strategy on those ingredients. We could call this strategy phonics with a twist. Step number 1. Train your child to hear the sounds in words. This step comes before you even start with formal reading instruction. In proper terms, these skills that you're training your child on are called phonological and phonemic awareness. I will not explain the actual distinction between phonological and phonemic awareness in this presentation because I don't want it to be extremely long, but if you want to go deeper and find out more about these two skills, I have other videos on the channel, and of course you can learn more on the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch, Step by Step. Some easy ways to encourage these skills are reading and listening to nursery rhymes. I know this may sound way too easy, but nursery rhymes, as the name indicates, are full of rhymes, and rhymes are excellent to train our ears to hear the sounds in words. Playing to come up with words that begin with the same sound. For instance, words that begin with the s sound, such as Sarah, sat, sun, sand, sound. And at the end of the exercise, make up a silly story with all the words that you've used. For instance, when Sarah was sitting on the sand, under the sun, she heard a sound. Playing rhyming games. Come up with words that rhyme, and once more at the end make up a silly story using all the words that you came up with. Play the I Spy game. You know how it goes. I spy with my little eye something that starts with or s or p. Talking code game. Say the individual sounds of a word one after the other. For instance, instead of saying, can I have a kiss, say, can I have a kiss? And see if your child understands and you get a kiss. There are also certain apps and online games that have been specifically created for the development of phonemic awareness. For more ideas, remember you can check the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch, Step by Step. But as you may have noticed, at this point we have basically been learning through games and fun, and by integrating certain habits and routines in our daily life. Step number 2. Starting formal reading instruction. Now it's time to start to learn the letters and the most common sound they make. This is an essential piece of the puzzle. So how are we going to do this? As we introduce new concepts, what the child learns must build upon what he or she already knows. I repeat, what the child learns must build upon what he or she already knows. This is very important. Don't go from super simple to super advanced, or worse, try to teach everything at the same time. I know it looks very logic and very obvious, but this happens many times and we do it without even realizing, and we leave children like this. Very confused children indeed. Okay, let's look now at the principles behind the order of introduction of sounds for beginner readers. Instead of going in alphabetical order, we start with the most common sounds in words first. This is a suggestion of an order that we could use, and by the way, you'll find it on the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step. However, it's not the only valid order. In fact, different phonics programs use different orders. The key takeaway here is to make sure that we're using an order that is logic and makes sense, and that we have a system to make sure that we cover all the sounds in a sensible way. What's extremely important though is that as we're teaching all of this to our children, we are making sure that we're teaching letter names and letter sounds at the same time. So say this is the letter A and it makes the A sound. This is the letter B and it makes the B sound, and so on and so forth. And it is also very important that we make sure that we are not adding the sound at the end of consonants. This is a very common habit and it is going to cause many problems down the road. Many people, including me in the past, made this mistake because actually this is how most people were taught the letter sounds themselves. So if you have this habit, my suggestion is to stop it as soon as possible. So for example, for the letter M, the correct sound is not ma. And for the letter R, for instance, the right sound is not ra. Okay, so we know the principles, we know what to do and not to do, but what strategies can we use to teach the sounds? Unfortunately, there's no magic bullet when it comes to learning the sounds, and I cannot really tell you how long it's going to take your child or student. But there are certainly some things that we can do to speed up the process. One of my favorite things to do is taking the full immersion in language approach. In short, this means that as you go along your daily life, you take any opportunity to remind your child about the letters and see if he or she can remember the sounds these letters make. Labels in food, signals in the street, a letter in the mail. Letters are really everywhere. Point to them, talk about them, get your child curious and interested in them. Other strategies that we can use to teach the sounds are using songs and music. We know that children love music and can learn so much from it, so take full advantage of this. But what I'd encourage you to do is to use this tool in a strategic way. Pick songs that are only about the letter that you're teaching your child at that specific point, for instance, so you do not overwhelm him or her. Maybe pick songs that teach letter names and letter sounds at the same time, because we know how important that is. Of course, you can also use fun and engaging alphabet worksheets, and in that regard, you can actually check our free worksheets to learn the alphabet. We'll leave you links to those on the video description. And we can also use kinetic activities. There are many things that we can do with Play-Doh and play foam, like molding letters. There are even sets to learn the alphabet. There are also other manipulatives like letter magnets or letter tiles that can be very useful at this point. More things that we can do to teach the sounds. Games, letter bingo, walk to the sound game, initial sounds drawing competition or challenge. You'll find more details about these games and ideas on the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step. Do you think your child is ready for more formal reading instruction? Do you think he or she can make it through a 5 to 10 minute sit-down lesson? Great! If that's the case, I recommend you watch this video on the channel. I think it's called something like Learning the Letter B. Don't worry, I'll leave you the link on the video description. And of course, you'll also have the lesson script on the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step. Step number 3. Starting to blend the sounds. As you go along teaching the sounds, you can start sounding out words with your child. You can start to do this when you observe that your child can recognize at least some letter sounds without hesitation. This means that he or she has developed an automatic reflex. To check if your child has developed that automatic reflex, take some random alphabet cards and ask your child to say the letter sounds. Was she or he able to say the sounds confidently? If so, this is when the fun really begins. When you are starting out, start blending VC words. These are vowel consonant words such as at or in, and CVC words, consonant vowel consonant words such as mat or pet, containing letters and sounds that your child has already mastered. Start by modeling first when you're just getting started and work one-on-one as much as possible. In our library of free resources, you'll find a CVC word list that can help you get started. You'll find all the details on the video description. How to model. There are two types of blending: broken or choppy blending and smooth or continuous blending. Broken or choppy blending goes like this. Say you're reading a three-letter CVC word such as mad. Point to the first letter and say its sound. Pause for a second. Point to the second letter and say its sound. Ah. Pause for a second. Point to the third letter and say its sound. T. Do this process 3 times, going faster and faster. At, at, mat. Smooth or continuous blending is all about stretching the sounds. Mat, mat. Combine both types of blending and find out which one suits your child or student better. However, bear in mind that the smooth blending is not possible for all sounds. We have stop sounds in English such as b, k, d, g, etc. You simply can't stretch these sounds. We explain all of these in more detail on the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step. Step number 4. Reading more complicated words. After your child has mastered CVC words, it's time to move to CCVC words such as flip or crab, and CCVCC words such as draft or plant. These are actually words that include what are normally referred to as consonant blends or consonant clusters. On the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step, you'll find out how to get a free sample of a list of words with initial consonant blends. At this point, you're probably wondering, what about high-frequency words? High-frequency words are normally just referred to as sight words. This is because of the common belief that they have to be memorized and learned just by sight alone. Sometimes certain memorization techniques such as word shapes are used to teach these words. However, in my opinion, the best way to teach high-frequency words is using phonics. I know you're probably very surprised by what I have just said, because it goes against the grain. Most people think that that's not possible since these words follow non-regular spelling patterns. But the truth of the matter is that while some have non-regular spellings, contrary to popular belief, only a small portion of them are truly irregular. According to an analysis carried out by the Learning Reading Hub, more than 70% of these words are phonetically decodable. I go in way more detail on this topic in this video. The link will be on the video description. On the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step, and on our master word list, I even give you a sequence of introduction of these words following phonics principles. Step number 5. Introducing digraphs. In English, sometimes 2 consonants team up to make a new sound. For instance, CH to make the ch sound, chat, church. SH to make the sh sound, shop, ship. This is what makes these digraphs different from consonant blends. In consonant blends or consonant clusters, these consonants keep their original sounds. Listen how in crab, spade, and drink, these consonants keep their original sound. When you're first working with digraphs, it is pretty likely that your child or student will aim to sound out each of the letters that form these digraphs individually. For instance, with this word, your child might be attempting to read the word like this: k, ha, a, t. This is normal and a good sign of his or her blending skills. Our objectives here are twofold: that the child familiarizes himself or herself with the sounds that digraphs make, and that the child starts to see these letters as a whole rather than as two separate letters. To achieve these objectives, there are certain strategies that we can use. For example, at the beginning, present words with digraphs like this. As you can see, the digraph is completely separated from the rest of the sounds. Cover A and T in chat, so your child can really focus on the ch digraph. Underline digraphs in words as a reminder that these two letters go together. More details, more ideas on the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch, step by step. Step number 6. Continue to introduce the rest of the English reading rules in a structured, systematic order. These are the concepts that we introduce right after digraphs on our phonics sequence. Bossy E, floss rule, hard G, soft G, hard C, soft C, open and closed syllables, R-controlled syllables, vowel themes. For a detailed sequence of introduction, remember you can check our book and the video description. Okay, I know it's been a lot of information all at once. Remember, you've got all the details on the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step, which at the time of recording you can get for free or at a very special promo price on Amazon Kindle. I know I said at the beginning of this presentation that you were going to discover the 5 ingredients that in my opinion are key for a successful learn to read strategy. Well, I was reserving this for you that stayed until the very end. Anyway, don't worry, because this strategy I've just shared has taken them into account. But anyway, let's go through the 5 ingredients. The first one is phonics. You may have noticed that all of this strategy is based on phonics principles. This is because in the last few decades, neuroscience has uncovered what happens in the brain when we learn to read. In short, this is what happens. First, we need to specialize our brain visual system to the shape of the letters, and then via the phonology pathway, we connect those shapes to the speech sounds. Phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness, as we've learned before, is all about training our ears to hear the sounds in words. Our level of phonemic awareness is key. It has been found to be the #1 predictor for future success at reading or reading difficulty. An extremely careful progression for the introduction of rules and concepts. Again, it is extremely important that new concepts build upon what we already know. Otherwise, it can get really confusing for children. Orthographic mapping. It is really difficult to explain in a few sentences here what orthographic mapping is. It is a complex concept. What I'll say is that this strategy has taken orthographic mapping into account, so don't worry. And if you want to know more about orthographic mapping, we have other videos on the channel. And of course, you can find out more about orthographic mapping in our book. And the 5th and last ingredient is patterns. Well, I know we didn't really look at patterns in this presentation, but what I'll say is that we benefit from patterns to learn irregular words in a much simpler way. Again, if you want to understand more about this point and how all these pieces fit together into a learn to read strategy, check the book How to Teach a Child to Read from Scratch Step by Step.